Hello everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll discuss my favorite topic, Russia, China, US, NATO, world threats and what is happening on geopolitical stage and the defense stage as well. I just did an article pertaining to this topic, so I decided to put it in a video as well and actually elaborate further on the topic. So as everybody knows, tensions between US and Russia have been escalating, and also China. It started even under Trump as far as China trade war and everything like that, but now it escalated to a new trajectory as far as almost possibility of a new so-called Cold War even with China. Under Biden administration, a lot has been changing, but history tends to repeat itself as well. So as of recent, as there has been a lot of reports compiled by Russia, China, and US pertaining world global threats. The recent one that was presented actually by Scott Bernay, who is a lieutenant general, and he did the report on April 29th. It's 57 pages long. It is an annual report, and the report is pertaining the world global threats, and every year it has been done, so it's not a new report and it's not a new scenario. However, the report contains a lot of information pertaining to China, Russia, and the threats. Of course, in the report it says that China is used COVID-19, and so is Russia, in order to advance their agendas, even though, I'm not going to put it in this video because there's a lot of controversy and a lot of discussions happened already, but COVID-19 obviously came out of China. However, a lot of origins on it, and given a lot of Nobel Prize winner, even an epidemiologist spoke out saying because it can actually both adapt to cold and warm blood hosts, there is a possibility that it is a hybrid virus and it was created in a lab. But nevertheless, this video is not about that. But nevertheless, China was using it and Russia is exploiting it. However, I don't blame Russia exploiting it with Turkey when they decided to halt all travel of Russians to Turkey, citing coronavirus, but I think it had to do with the fact that Turkey did not recognize Crimea as being a part of Russia. However, I'm not going into that geopolitical discussion. I'm saying the fact that that is why some countries exploit certain closures and travel, so Russia did one of them, even though I don't support what Russia was doing with that. But nevertheless, let's get back to the defense and what was actually been happening on that angle. So the report was compiled, but he's not the only one who actually supports that notion. There's multiple commands within US Defense Sector: African Command, Central Command, European Command, Pacific Command, and Northern Command and Southern Command all expressed their concerns pertaining to Russia and threats. Now, even to go further, this is the first time last month that actually this fight on terrorism was downgraded and Russia and China became a higher priority in Iran. And that was stated to the committee because there was hearings held last month, and U.S. Senate committee in regards to armed forces and everything like that, and that was readily discussed. There's multiple reports that came out on different days, and a lot of generals testified on that topic, and they all have in unison stating that Russia and China threat. Obviously, AFRICOM, which is the African Command, has been added to the list in regards to withstand Russia's and China's scenario and the possible threat, and it is a global battleground. What is interesting too, under Biden, there's a possibility that SEATO will be resurrected, not maybe in the same type of format. So what is SEATO? Originally, it was dissolved in 1977, and it was the Southern Asia Treaty Command. And what it was compounded of countries like Great Britain, Australia, New Zealand, Pakistan, USA, Thailand, Philippines, France, and it was an alliance of anti-communist countries because during the Cold War with US and the former Soviet Union, the alliance was pretty much needed. Also, there was two cooperators with it, which was Vietnam Republic, because until 1975 it was part of the French Union with Cambodia. So once that happened, so they weren't part of that. But now it could be resurrected due to China's threat, and I think also it would be a good idea because, like I said, history does tend to repeat itself. However, nevertheless, this time around Russia and China are working behind the scenes to make sure that it doesn't happen. China has also been working very aggressively in order to sow divide within Five Eyes nations. And in particular, they're supporting opposition of the current government, which is in New Zealand. And the reason why New Zealand is important because it was part of SEATO, and there's certain geopolitical interests in that region. Also, China is accused of boxing Cuba into the One Belt Initiative, which is another battleground because everybody knows Cuban Missile Crisis, Soviet Union involved, and everything else. And again, that was last century, but history does stand repeated. So Russia also is pushing their interest in Cuba as far as resurrecting the base and what they're already doing in that region as well. Overall, of multiple reports and everything like that, it's clear that there's going to be a lot of focus now on these nations. So since 9/11, everything has been focused on combating terrorism within the U.S., Five Eyes nations, and everybody else. Now the focus shifted towards Russia, China, Iran, and of course Iran. Even though Iran is a threat, but I think Russia, China is the main focus right now. North Korea is that list too, but again, still less significantly. Also, the report stated that China will have new generation weapons, and within 10 years they'll have all brand new fleet and could be actually potentially military threat, because China has not ever been a military threat before. It has been cyber threat, a lot of other threats. But nevertheless, as much as it is possible, I still think China is not strong enough to have success without Russia and others helping with the technology to create themselves. And one is the thing for most that anybody has to realize. There's a lot of talk about possibility even having war escalation with China and US outside of even Cold War and actually going to the full active war format somewhere in the different regions. One thing is about China. China has not won a war in 100 years. China is not combat ready. China does not have combat experience. Russia has had many combat experience, never mind being a strong nation pertaining to weapons. It also tested new generation weapons in Syria, there's Libya. Russia has used it in the conflicts within different areas of Russian borders even, and outside of it. And I have a feeling China is weak, and I'm not trying to underestimate China, stating that they're not capable, but I think that threat, possibly in 10 years, because the reports are annual, could be reassessed. But as far as the defense angle and their weapons technology, it is still lagging behind. And their weapons are usually old weapons. They're all, even if you do any analysis of the new weapons China has presented or allowed the world to see, etc., they're all based on older models, either Soviet models, some older US models. They're not capable of having the same strengths, and I don't think China is in an arms race in any way, shape, or form. And I'm not underestimating it, as I pointed out again, but I think it's going to be a long time before China gets there. And even 10 years, again, there's combat capabilities, intelligence, there's many factors involved, and I don't think China could be successful if they actually went to war. But nevertheless, it is a threat, and there are many reports, and like I said, many generals within US support. General Townsend for, like I said, AFRICOM supports the notion that Russia is a threat. There's also many talk about Russia being, many discussions that Russia is being a threat to northern and southern pole. That was a diagram that was inserted in a cover of my video today that was taken from Rozov. But nevertheless, there's a lot of factors are coming into play. And of course, the games and geopolitics, also it can be easily assessed that Biden is an old school type of politician. He also is not opposed to war. Doesn't mean he'll start a war, because usually under Democratic leadership, the wars are usually not started. It's usually more Republican track record, but nevertheless, Biden is not opposed to war. That's one of the important factors with that. And also the other important factors are, there's a lot of tensions happening with US and Russia. Could be pasturing too, because like Biden and Putin are slated to meet in June. But nevertheless, there's a lot of different factors on this and trajectories. However, I just gave you this perspective. So what's Russia and China has been doing? Just on May 4th, there has been a speech at Zhuhai, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct, in Chinese university, when one of the professors said that US would be a threat to China. He clearly advised to strengthen relationship with Russia pertaining defense and intelligence and geopolitical spectrum. There's also, China says that US could escalate to a full war. Obviously, I mentioned that's a possibility too, but I don't think it will happen anytime soon. China is also very strongly has been pushing their own propaganda and social engineering. Global Times have been one of the main tools used by China pertaining different anti-US sentiment, and including the factors about how Chinese should fear with word US and US is no longer a friend. Of course, it's not stated in that type of verbatim, but nevertheless, this is what's happening. China is also pushing for strengthening of BRICS, adding additional alliances with Russia, adding Iran and North Korea, because China does support North Korea, and adding them to certain projects Russia has been working with Iran on certain topics, but they're pushing for additional dealings with that and also pushing further into Africa. There's already obviously Chinese base in Djibouti that took place. Russia is pushing into Africa and dealing with a lot of nations right now, including supporting their infrastructure in exchange for having their strategic resources there as well. And Russia has been very instrumental as well. However, in Russia, and this is what I noticed for the past 2 weeks alone, there's a lot of propaganda pertaining to civil divide in US and as far as race divide. They're baiting almost every main channel in Russia that is government sponsored. Well, majority of Russian channels, if not all, are government sponsored, but the main ones like Russia One, Russia Today, etc., and additional others are actually peddling the fact that Russians and white people are afraid to live in US. There's many posts where they're saying that Russians are afraid to live in Atlanta and living in upscale neighborhoods. They're selling their houses and moving to Midwest because they're afraid what's going to happen. Their cars will be taken. There's uprising of African Americans and they're afraid, and there's safety fear for Caucasians now, which is obviously not true, but this is a sentiment that's going around and people are actually believing it because, as I put it in my even previous video, a lot of people who don't even support Putin or Russia are now fearful with that race mongering that's been taking place. And there's also within propaganda happening that US is trying to cause problems for Russian nationals. There's also a lot of propaganda pertaining how, LGBT community, it's always been one of the things threatening that, if Russian children move to US, they'll end up LGBT, etc. But however, this has been kicked off. There's also a lot of talk about how US wants to undermine Russia. And of course, that's pretty normal. That's been happening for a long time. But the propaganda kicked off on a racial divide on a very high level. There's also a lot of fear going around in Russia now pertaining what US could possibly do if anybody cooperates with any type of American national. If they communicate, they could be used as agents. So pretty much the same rhetoric that was happening during Soviet Union. Now it's kicked off to a new level, but also on a digital platform, and trajectory changed, but everything else remains the same. So I would like to know everybody's opinions. What do you think about the resurrection of SEATO? What do you think will be happening further? What do you think will be additional resources that will be happening? And what will be the focus? What do you think? And since history does repeat itself, do you think there will be an escalation of tensions? Do you think China will be at a full Cold War with US? What do you think China is prepared to do to retaliate? What do you think about weakening of the Five Eyes that China is trying to do? What do you think will be the next steps on the geopolitical arena? Please click like, please subscribe to my channel, and thank you for watching, and I hope everybody has a great day. Thanks again.